Welcome back to the Shining Light Press podcast. It's been a while since we've had an episode published recently. I am your host, Freddie Lopez, and we have been doing so many great things with the podcast. And my very first guest was probably one of the most recognizable and instantly memorable guests on the podcast. And I've got so many messages from my viewers who have all said, when are you going to bring back this guest? When are you going to see him again? Well, it's been a long time coming, but we are now back, and it's going to be a great discussion as always. So please welcome back David Gordon. David Gordon,
No,
how
thank
are you?
you. I'm well, Freddie. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. I'm not sure I deserve half of your introduction, but thank you so much. And thanks to all the people out there who have been paying attention.
You're welcome. Yes, absolutely. And things have definitely heated up. Things have slightly changed since the last time we spoke. But we're just going to get right into it. And before we can get onto the issues, I think everyone would like a just a brief introduction of who you are and why you have decided to go run as an independent for governor.
Well, that's becoming a more interesting question to me. I've wondered actually what drives me so much. I have kind of tracked it back to my one of my first childhood memories. It's kind of a interesting story. I was 4 years old and I was watching my mom iron, and she was teaching me to sing, and I was all excited about it. And we're singing a song called Rum and Coca-Cola, and it goes back to my time. And it was a song about the change over to the Castro and the revolution in Cuba. And it was kind of a cute little thing, song. Anyway, so my dad then walked into the room and set a newspaper down, and my mom started to cry. Here I was having the most happy little thing, and then dad left the room, and suddenly my whole little thing. So it's my earliest memory, and it turns out it was John F. Kennedy had been assassinated, and the date was November 23rd, the day after. And so I wondered from that point, why did the newspaper make my mama cry? And I have always had an ear to the ground for conspiracy theory since that time. You know, it's criminal conspiracy theory. I think a lot of folks lose that idea. Conspiracy theorists investigate things that are crimes, and we don't have the opinion that what we're being presented with was accurate. And I think now, at this point, we have so much information that the media and the government aren't always telling us the truth. And so we'll get to that larger context. But I think that's what drove me. And I went on to get a degree in journalism, traveled a lot, developed a number of different skills. And I find at this point, and in all honesty, if I could find a better man to run in my stead, I would just fully support him, or her, excuse me, of course. But I have developed these skills all my life in terms of presentation skills, in terms of study, deep research on a variety of topics, and especially now in the medical circumstances as they are now presented. It's all the more crucial to be extremely aware and discerning, and understanding the many different influences upon our lives that we don't control. You know, a lot of people say they're not interested in politics, and certainly I'd be one of those. I worked with horses. I do artwork. I have experience with the ocean in terms of being a sailor. Could actually get my captain's license and so forth. But when you bring all those together, I think it gives me a certain mentality that is appropriate. Yes, I am running for governor, and it seems a little unlikely, but my background is as an inventor. I solve problems. And that's not that hard to do. And the problems that present themselves, I have 35 years as a television producer, director, and that's all about solving problems on many levels. It's logistics. And my take on things is that, yes, I have no political experience. I frankly don't want any. I don't have all the inside scoops about how this or that works, which person is responsible for this, what are the power brokers in the area, in the state in this case. My approach is to find what the problems are and find the solutions. The answer is in the room in a lot of cases. In other words, the people if you want to find out what we should do about our border, you go down to the border, find out what those people are thinking, and then give them the resources to correct the situation. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I approach things and out. First time somebody said thinking outside the box, I was one of those people who said, "What box?" Never been in a box. So it allowed me to be an inventor as well as a television director and producer. So yeah, that's a quick rundown. It's not very well organized. I should probably get that into a little elevator speech in the future, but my friends will say I'm a little too honest. I don't have any, as far as the governor thing, I don't have any particular set in stone planks or principles. Everything needs to be negotiated. Every different instance needs to be figured out. So it's kind of a different approach to as opposed to the politician approach. So hopefully people will find some resonance with that.
Absolutely, and just your little introduction there was extremely just being honest. And I believe many people out there are looking for that in someone who is going to represent them, especially in a position as high as governor. So, and that's simply the way it is. And I guess my first question is this. So we have multiple candidates running for governor. When it comes to on the Republican side, there's Rebecca Dowd, Ethel Mahar, Jay Block, and Mark Marchetti, Wallace Gray Zanetti. And on the Libertarian side, we have Karen Pedoni, and that's pretty much, and aside from you, those are all the candidates. And my quick question to you is, there are so many candidates, and obviously they're all going to go through the primaries, and there's going to be a clear nominee at the end of it all. And I guess my question to you is, what would make you the most unique compared to the two parties, and what will you show to voters that what, both parties have not worked? I am the solution to it. So how do you propose that?
Yeah, let me just clarify something. So MLG has a primary challenger. Is that correct?
No, she is unopposed in the Democratic
Unopposed.
primary.
Okay, I'm afraid I may have misunderstood there. Yeah, that didn't seem likely. I think when it comes down to this, my theory is essentially to be the last man standing on the ballot. I believe that as an independent, for one, 50% of voters are independent. They tend to lean either one way or another, or they're true independents. But they're not a member of a party. It's almost like you've got that vast voting block in the middle that are undecided. And I can guarantee you they are tired of things as they are. I mean, when it comes to Michelle Lujan Grisham's campaign and what her intentions are in the future, it's going to be more of the same. And that's not acceptable. We've had our economy devastated for no real good reason after all the time. And if we follow the science at this point, we find that masks are ineffective. As a construction worker part-time, I can tell you, yeah, they are ineffective. And yet we have this whole almost religious fervor for the wearing of them. Now that's been repealed repealed is not even the right word. That would speak to a law. A mandate was never a law. It's more like a strong suggestion. And I would suggest it needs to pass through the legislature. And maybe it's under this emergency umbrella that so many governments are choosing. I'm not sure if she had emergency powers, but regardless, it comes down to being reasonable and rational about things and doing our own study. I think it's sad that we jumped into this whole idea that we had to hide in our houses while 2 weeks became 2 years and more now. But this is an encroaching, it can be called tyranny, certainly, and it's just not something that, the funny thing is I don't think Americans are ready to deal with it, and I don't think a lot of them still are. There has to be a greater awakening. So trying to get back to your question and answer that. So when it comes down to what's on the ballot, it's going to be that, and on the Democrat side, more of the same. And then the other option is going to be some rhino Republican. It's just the way it's going to be. The powers that be won't accept anything else, and that rhino Republican's job is to lose. I think at that point, we will have much more ability to see through this subterfuge that calls itself a two-party system when it's actually two wings of the same buzzard that's tearing apart the American fabric. The Republicans, especially the rhinos, basically go along with whatever the Democrats are doing. They may have an issue about this or that, but by and large, the agenda continues. I mean, look at the national level for just a moment as an illustration. All of Trump's appointments are somehow still quite acceptable to Joe Biden. I mean, Christopher Wray as head of the FBI could be replaced overnight by Biden. Did he do that? No. So I think there's, especially based on the experiences we've had in the COVID situation, there's just going to be increasing awareness on the part of the general populace as to the level of deception that has gone on. And there's going to be a lot of fatigue about having our economy destroyed and still destroyed. The middle class is being wiped out. And now they want to pass this Clean Futures Act. And it got some note, I think it's in committee until the next, it's actually called in the calendar to be reconsidered as a bill in the future. But this will shut down our economy even worse. So we'll maybe come back to that in another in a little bit here in detail. But so yes, we face more of the same or more of the same. And I don't think the voters want more of the same. I think we need innovation, productivity, and caring about people. But let's maybe wrap that question there. But I would like to talk about what my orientation is. So maybe we'll come back to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we can touch a little bit on national issues because right now, in terms of inflation, we have seen just a tremendous spike in basically anything and everything, when it ranges from your gas, groceries, to basic essentials are basically spiking in prices that are so high. Many people are wondering, well, should I save money for gas? Or should I save this money for groceries? It's become so desperate now. And we have so much, recently we had so much government spending, not only on the federal level, but the state level. And many people now, especially with this whole situation going on with Russia and Ukraine, many people are expecting gas prices to go even higher. So my question to you is, as governor, what do you propose to ease the burden of inflation and all that to make it, easy to live instead of having so many people decide on whether or not they're going to get a roof, pay the bills and have a roof over their head, or pay the bills to keep the lights on?
Well, I'll argue that we've been in a long-term austerity program as it stands. The current situation and the incredible inflation, I think gasoline is an obvious indicator, but that it's been this high before. So that's the gasoline price at the pump varies with other variables, especially political ones. But what doesn't vary with political variables is dog food. So a year ago, I kind of marked it in my head, dog food was $1 a can. And dog food's a commodity. There's certain ingredients, they come from the same source all the time. They have the same amount. It's not like the dog food price varies. Well, now it's $1.39. So that says 39% inflation straight up. Now, other groceries haven't shifted that much. But yeah, so there's definitely serious inflation, and you can say it's 7.5%, which I think was the official notation. But they cut out different. They probably don't include gasoline on that number anymore because that's, I don't know. They just adjust the numbers as they need. It's unfortunate they. So, big picture of my campaign, I'm sorry, I guess I'll call it the slogan, if you will, or if I put it in a nutshell, it's end the feds with an S. So end the Fed, most of us know what that means, but I think a lot less federal intrusion would be good. And then, so it's end the feds, end the mob, which is to say monopoly participation in commerce. And given that, so from the top, end the feds, end the mob, health, wealth, and education for all. So we can afford the latter three: health care, wealth building for everyone, not just the elite, if we have a state bank, and then we can afford as well education. But with a state bank where we have the option, not the requirement, but the option of putting your deposits in the state bank and taking the collection of interest, which is at usury levels and beyond. I mean, I get credit card offers. I don't know if like credit repair companies or repair your credit for 175% interest. So they give you a $1,000 loan, and a year later you owe them $1,750. So, hey, in an emergency, you might have to take the deal, but that's beyond usury. That's I don't know. I don't know. It's just it's going to destroy an economy. So a state bank changes a lot of things. Maybe we can speak to that in detail. But as far as the inflation thing, too, we basically create our own currency, and that is as gold, a gold-backed bank. And there's a digital aspect to it, and it'll work in with the general economic systems like the SWIFT system or whatever, or maybe not. It becomes a real challenge to the federal government when you pull out of the banking systems. For instance, when the state said, "Oh, we should pave this road," the first thing they do is go out and get the loan for it. Well, that loan would come from the state bank, and rather than paying whatever interest rate it is to a cadre of close associates, our bank would provide funding at a much more reasonable basis. But we really shouldn't be borrowing money for things anyways. If we shift some things in terms of income receipts into the state coffers from different sources, I believe too, in this scenario, we can eliminate state tax, just like they do in Texas and other strong running economies. So the inflation thing, I would see it being very important to guard yourself against hyperinflation at this point. If you actually have significant capital, you better, start diversifying your portfolio pretty fast. and that covers a bunch of different areas. But yeah, and I think anyone with that much capital probably understands that. But we're seeing other factors. Banks in Canada, just shutting down the accounts of people who contributed as little as $25 or whatever to the truckers, which never got to them. So, and this is on a basis of no, I don't know what the equivalent would be in Canada, but no warrant or no charges filed, no nothing. They've deputized, basically deputized the banks to be agents of the courts or of the government. There's no courts. I mean, it's another story, but agents of the Prime Minister of Canada, they can be told to shut down this account and they just do it. So if people are worried about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies being something that turns off if your computer turns off and the power goes out, well, you could really easily say that all deposits are crypto, in the sense that when your bank turns it off, it's gone as gone can be. There's no recourse in these situations from it. It looks like, you call the customer assistance number of these banks and nobody answers. So we face a multitude of challenges that come back to the economic thing, which comes back to the inflational factor on people's lives and whether they can afford things. But we started out in an austerity program where we're always poor, and especially in this state. I think it's the poorest state in the country. It's got the worst education in the country and extremely high crime rate in the country. So we're number 50 on so many levels that I think I can do better. Let's leave it at that.
Yes, definitely. I think almost anybody at this point, many people would consider, we would rather have somebody else at this point. And many people can see that you one of the people that can do that. And one of my other questions also is, you had mentioned the border earlier. So when it comes to the southern border, we still have, it's totally unsecured, and so many people coming across, and many people are concerned about that. So my question to you is, as governor, and because I've noticed many of the governors, well, actually all of the gubernatorial candidates have all said that they will deploy the National Guard on the border. What would you do for that particular situation?
So which candidate said they would do that? The
Republic? All of them have actually said it, all the Republican candidates.
Republican, yes. Obviously, MLG and team are not doing anything other than corresponding with the whatever they are intentions of the national administration under Joe Biden. Yeah, well, everybody says that. First thing I do is pull the National Guard back from where they are, which is in foreign engagements all over the world. And that is not something the other Republicans will mention, because I'm distinctly anti-war. It has never achieved any of the purported goals anywhere from Vietnam on, if not others. In fact, you could make an argument this is where your Republican rhinos aren't going to go. They're going to talk about the border. Well, I'm saying let's go buy the leftover fence right now. Let's get down to where the ranchers are and see where the real problems are. I don't know that we have the situation, at least it's not presented, that people are coming across the Rio Grande into Mexico, New Mexico, from Mexico into New Mexico, and, hiking through the desert. There certainly could be that. I assume there are places where there is that, but that's a vicious desert, and you don't want to be walking very far through it. again, there's ranchers that are on the ground, understand the threat, understand the difficult points. But yeah, and as they return, the National Guard would be recommissioned as a state guard. In fact, they rather are a state guard. They are under the aegis of the governor. And to exactly the extent to which those, what their abilities are, what the requirements are, so on and so forth, has to be worked out. But yeah, we put our boys on the border. Their next assignment is going to be defending the border of Ukraine. Yet we don't defend our own. We're defending the democracy, which doesn't exist in Ukraine, when we don't defend our own with reasonable voting systems and so forth. So I hope I kind of covered that. But yeah, we're right on it. The day after inauguration, if it's called that on the state level, I assume it is. We'll be there, if not before. One of my approaches to doing this governor project is to start being the governor now, start integrating the what programs I could, what would they be, make the phone calls, get to know the people. My administration won't start on day one. It started years ago. Like I said, I kind of didn't finish that whole dissertation. But from when I was 4 years old, I was curious about the world and how to solve the problems of it. So I've studied political science and economics and everything, medicine for that matter, from a layman's standpoint to the extent one can, and therefore have tremendous perspective on all of these issues, and have worked them out, seen different examples across the world where strong borders make strong neighbors. It used to be the saying, strong fences make strong neighbors. I think that would help our relationship with the country of Mexico, in that we would have better relationships as far as securing our food supply here. A lot of our food comes from Mexico, which is wonderful. But looking into some other issues like GMOs and so forth would be of interest there. But yeah, the border is going to be crucial. We are a border state. It's one of the reasons why we're going to have the high crime rate, because I don't know, again, whether anybody's crawling through the deserts of New Mexico to get here, but they sure as hell are coming up I-25. And I have some very unique, specific ideas on how we might handle that. Of course, yes, it involves the National Guard, which again, it gets reconsidered to a state guard. And I understand that there are a lot of folks in the National Guard, or they want the hard military experience, and I'm not going to require anyone to come back. But yeah, recalling the National Guard before you think you're going to put them on the border might be a good idea.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's great. And I think another great segue is we have one candidate, well, actually just one candidate aside from the incumbent candidate for Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse-Oliver. There's one other candidate named Audrey Trujillo, and she's running on the Republican side. And we talked about it once, and she is one strong candidate. And my question to you is, when it comes to our electoral process, because many people out there believe that the election was stolen, and whether or not we can prove that, there are people who believe that. And my question—
Sorry, believe what exactly, Freddie?
Oh, believe that the election was stolen. And that—
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that precise point. I was thinking on a tangent there. Yeah, go ahead, forgive me.
No problem, and it's okay. And she is running on a platform of saying, listen, regardless if we can prove it or not, we need to have voter integrity, and we need to have people who want to get out and vote and not force everything. Because recently there was a bill, well, it was killed off when one senator basically filibustered, talked for several hours to run out the clock so they can not consider the bill. And it basically would allow 16-year-olds to vote. It would allow no excuse absentee ballots. It would allow ballot drop boxes. It would allow, basically, if you go to the DMV to get a driver's license, you'll automatically get registered to vote. Luckily, the bill was killed off, and Audrey Trujillo is running on a platform to correct that and make elections secure. So, as governor, how would you work with the Secretary of State to solve that problem?
Well, if there's any chance whatsoever of my becoming governor or anyone other than a chosen person of the cabal or the powers that be, we need to solve the voting problem before this election, because Audrey won't be there, I won't be there, nobody will be there from a reasonable background. And I guess I mean the word reasonable very seriously in that case, where we've looked to reason and find the best solutions regardless the politics of things. I know I've met Audrey and I believe she's of the same orientation in terms of, let's do the right thing. So it has to happen before. And how do you do that? Well, a program to insist on paper ballots and so forth. But I think one of the big clues how we deal with this is that we start voting now through polls and different ways to ascertain the opinions of the public on different issues. But yeah, and they would be online polls. There's got to be other ways to take them to neighborhood polls. My basic contention is that we either start voting on a small scale with paper ballots and whatever systems are required. And in fact, that's the whole point. There are no systems required. You don't need a computer to tabulate voting tabulations. You don't need the files sent to a foreign country, in the case of Dominion, for some reason, sending them to Spain, and then they come back or something. This is so much absurdity. You don't need a computer. You don't need algorithms. You don't need that much math. In fact, you don't need any math other than 1 + 1 + 1 + 1. It adds up. And there is no subtraction, there's no division by all means, and no multiplication. So, and when I say early and often, it's kind of a joke, of course. We need to relearn to vote now. And I suggest little programs in the schools, starting to form neighborhood, you might call it a caucus or whatever, but at least, and the general public, and I don't blame them, is not interested in politics. Well, politics is very interested in them. Politics has destroyed their jobs. Politics has masked them and hid them in their house for the last 2 years. Politics does all the things that happen to you. So my contention is we either learn and start practicing voting from house to house and street to street, or we will be fighting house to house, street to street very quickly. This happens now. And that's part of the programs I referenced, starting to be the governor now and integrate these programs into the process. And that's just one of them.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And another question that I have, and it's regarding New Mexico, because there are so many people who are that are just absolutely partisan, such as, oh, if you are a Democrat, you automatically think this, or if you're a Republican, you automatically think this, so on and so forth. And my question to you is, as governor, how do you get everyone to, one of the big things that the current president, this current administration has talked about unifying people, even though I don't see that. So I don't think any voters see that. So my question to you is, as the governor with this policy, how are you going to show that, listen, we should all come together. We may disagree on the goals, but we should all have the same goals.
Yeah. Well, again, that has to happen before the election. I have to help reconcile the divisions. And for one, that's my nature. I am on a level, a peacemaker, certainly, but find the reconciliation, find the third way. The polarization within the political parties is on purpose. It's coordinated, it's developed and put together by the greatest minds in political science, which isn't saying much about their mentality, but the division is sowed on purpose. And even in terms of the symbology of my party, I believe we'll come together under the banner of the Unity Coalition. Unity in terms of that's our first standpoint. Again, I believe generally the independent voters or non-aligned, as they may say, are basically in that camp. And then they see the extremes going on either side and so forth. So yeah, basically we're the purple party. We're halfway between the red and the blue. It's a party of reconciliation. We'll take the best ideas from the other parties, which there are very few, and basically think outside the box, put grassroots. And I mean, again, going back to the idea of approaching the ranchers on the border to see what they should do. And then my job and the administration's job would be to find the resources to help them meet their goals, whatever they might be, and then get out of the way. I'm very much a small government person. I'm very much for the people on the ground taking care of these things. So I think that message begins to translate. We'll see so much polarization. We've seen that. It's so strange. I'm an armchair psychologist, but I can't really fully figure out why the liberal Democrat folks, so-called, are aligning with this medical mandate and so forth on different levels. It's just, and then why a little more to the right, those folks are anti-mask or whatever they've been, if it's even that, but don't want to take the government Kool-Aid and get an injection in the arm for which they know nothing of the origins and the ingredients, and we may be looking at a mass. We probably come back to this question in another one, but so how did that polarization happen? I think we'll learn a lot from this polarization. I think we'll learn a lot in the next few months about the degree of danger with the conventional medicine, and we know that there's some. Again, we'll come back maybe the COVID question in another question, but this is part of the polarization. So it comes to just, I think there's a couple things involved. Certainly having the programs that you just look beyond creed, color, and whatever other division you can come up with, right, left, and just get the best idea to make a better world for our children.
You're absolutely correct, and that's another reason why many people are getting involved is because of that, for the next generation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are not interested in politics at all, and I think that's a great segue into education, because one of the biggest issues that many people are concerned with is education in the classrooms. You have children being taught that your skin color is important. Children are being taught that that it's not the content of character that's important, it's your skin color. And many parents, would normally not be. And I guess the one blessing that one person I totally argue that, when the children would be at home on the computers and on the Zoom meetings, the parents would see what they're being taught. And they discovered that they're being taught,
It's so funny, just on that point, so many problems take care of themselves. I mean, the powers that be have jumped the shark on so many levels. First, they have this horrific, just like you're saying, curriculum, the CRT thing, critical race theory, which is critical of the white race, apparently. And yeah, rename that. But yeah, and then then they want to close the schools down, so then they have to have online. So then the parents find out what their kids are being taught. Well, folks, they're practice. So let me jump into the answer, I think, if I may. So the answer is homeschool your kids right now. And you'll say, oh, I don't have a choice, or I have to work. Well, maybe that's the case in your case. And those are extreme challenges, but a lot of people aren't working anyways. They spent a year and now another year with their kids in the house all the time. So if those kids learn nothing, that's your fault. But I assume that a lot of people did begin homeschooling because they're out of work, the kids are home, there's nowhere to go and nothing to do other than learn something. And then, yes, the whole online world is there. You can learn anything about anything right now. And having a degree, even going through the standard, the standard rungs of education from primary to middle school, high school, college, and so forth, especially now, you'd be better off training as a diesel mechanic. So much better off. And hey, it's practical things, in other words, are going to be gold, and advanced degrees and even minor degrees or masters in sociology or something, they're going to be so meaningless. And even so, an interesting thing, I've been an advocate for homeschooling. And again, that's a program I attempted to engage in terms of a homeschool support group so that the kids could socialize. So we'd have activities at least on weekends, if not more so. And then bring in tutors and actual teachers and so forth of different stripes, concentrate on math. But we need to concentrate on the basics: reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's never changed. And start with that. The whole race thing, for me, it's just so totally irrelevant. I've been around the world enough that I value what people can contribute so beyond who they are, where they are, whether their orientations are, whether they like playing poker or Scrabble or whatever. And so it's just this, it's a sickness to think skin color is an issue. It's a disease, and it's been imposed on us. It's all planned, it's all organized, it's all coordinated, and the best minds in political science enforce that upon us. And we create this impression. But you go anywhere real. I mean, I've been down to Florida not too long ago, and here going out on the town, and I'm afraid of running into Florida man or somebody, but in what shape or form that's going to take. But some alligator wrestling guy is going to like have a problem with me or something. I'm like, oh, I saw a little trepidatious, but I saw the most fabulous thing. People of all shapes, sizes, ages, colors, if you must, playing pool, laughing at with each other. It was absolutely glorious. So I don't think that institutional racism exists other than in the minds of the people to whom it serves.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to throw this out there because when you mentioned Florida, man, there was a funny story.
I was born in Florida, Cape Canaveral.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I'm a NASA brat.
Yeah, because there was a funny story I saw of a Florida man. Apparently, so what happened is he had the munchies at around, like, I would say midnight, or a little bit before midnight, and he just decided to drive to, I guess, a Wendy's to get some Coke. And what happened is after he got his Coke, he had like several foot long alligator, a baby alligator or a mini alligator, and he just chucks it inside the drive-thru. He just chucks it inside the drive-thru, scaring the absolute daylight out of a worker. Yeah, he just threw it and scared the living daylights out of a worker. And he threw it so fast, like if you look on the camera, it's one frame. Like one frame where you see the camera. I guess this guy threw that thing at the speed of light because because it was just so quick. You only have to pause it right on that frame. But he eventually, was caught and arrested for assault with a deadly weapon.
With a deadly alligator, I guess. I don't know. That's a unique angle of crime. Well, that's Florida for you. Yeah, I was born in Florida. I don't have a lot of Florida tendencies, but other than, I don't know, I may be totally wrong. I may have a lot of them because it was fabulous to see the camaraderie, I guess is my word, amongst all the people in this, just one bar out of 1,000, a million in Florida. And it was just, it was beautiful. I really enjoyed it.
Right. Yeah, Florida is a really great state. Some people call Florida the only free state when you compare all of them with the lockdowns and mandates. South Dakota is another free state too. But I think another great segue is, you had mentioned that, people, just don't see each other on a basis. There are individuals who do, but to say, especially when you're teaching children, because children, when they grow up, they don't see race. They don't see race. They just see, oh, there's another boy. Oh, there's another girl. They don't see that stuff. So when they're teaching this stuff to the children, it not only gets, me infuriated, it just gets the parents infuriated to realize I'm putting my child in this school with a curriculum that just not only anti-education, just anti-American. So a lot of people do
Yeah.
feel how strongly about it.
Yeah. So again, to cap that, I firmly believe in homeschooling. I believe in homeschooling now. And again, it may not be possible for everyone. It's always understood. But sending your children to school is counterproductive to their future. And, hey, there's some great schools out there, obviously, but there's a lot of parental support for those schools. They're allowed to discuss things at the school board meeting. I mean, we see these aspects of tyranny trickling all the way down to even the school boards, where the parents are investigated as domestic terrorists if they say we need to evaluate the curriculum.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, just get out. That's the only thing to do right now. The kids won't suffer that much. Practical knowledge is everything. Learning, how to take care of the house, how to cook, how to take care of the animals. Start with the simple stuff, and then lemonade stands. I firmly believe in lemonade stands because the kid's going to have to learn math and how to, hey, how many cups of sugar do we use here, and so on and so forth. And it inculcates that entrepreneurial spirit, which is the human spirit, which is a life-giving, life-promoting aspect. That kind of brings me back to another interesting point. And we were talking about the division between the different parties. And my take is that, let's just say in the best of notes, the Republicans support commerce. They want to build businesses. These folks have the ability and the wherewithal and finance and so forth to build a business. And on the Democrat side, you might say their best instincts is more so to take care of people, have a social network, not network, but fabric, which supports those things that are on the social side of things. Well, you can't give anyone any help unless you have the ability to do so. And so my thing is that I have both these instincts. I started a business that I've invented a rocket stove. We talked about that a little bit before, but that helps people. It saves lives. So my orientation is, yes, you have to have both of these things, that there's a dichotomy between these two notions. Oh, we either are productive or we help people. It's got to be both at the same time. And in all these different little nooks and crannies of how you organize that on a state or even a city level, certainly you have common trash pickup, you have common police programs, you have communal fire departments, of course. And this is the social side of things. So you take care of people. But, in my administration, I truly believe if we get rid of some of the external banking influences, we'll be rich. We will not be in an austerity program. We'll be able to afford full education for anybody to the extent of their ability. We'll be able to afford healthcare because we'll do far more preventative and natural healthcare. Get away from the pharmacopoeia of death that we will be all the more aware of when this COVID thing ends here more and more. So, boy, I do jump around, but everything's related. Everything's connected. What are you teaching the kids in school? Wear a mask. Well, not anymore, thank goodness. The governor found her way to remove the mandates. What's the date today? Just for the note, it's the 20th of February. So yeah, that just happened a couple of days ago, and now folks aren't. I went to the supermarket the next day because she was kind of in the afternoon, and I caught it, and I think it came late in the day. The next day, after the dropping of the indoor masking requirements, I went to the supermarket and didn't wear my mask. But there's like only like 30% of the people had dared to take their masks off. And I think the others were still scared or concerned or didn't know. But this is, we're going to see how much we lost. I mean, it was so weird walking around in the supermarket thinking that all the unmasked people looked beautiful. Their faces were wonderful to see. And they were all different shapes and stripes and not necessarily beautiful. I mean, but they're just beautiful to see the humanity again, and the smiles and the interaction. So yeah, I think we're done with the that construct. But again, yeah, I jump around a lot because everything's related.
Absolutely. You have a point there. I remember I believe it was in California. This was, I would say, almost a year ago. I would say it was a little bit after the beginning of the whole pandemic. And there was a group of people who they went into a Whole Foods, and while there was a huge line of people wearing masks, they just walked in. It's about, I would say, 7 people. They just walked in with no mask, continued their shopping. Nobody stopped them, and they came right back out. And then a few days after they did that, the Whole Foods in that area said, "We're not going to enforce the mandate." So I believe many people nowadays, especially with the Lithium amount, are going to realize, to see all the beautiful people and just see their faces and just,
Yeah.
communicate. And,
Yeah.
when it comes to masking in the schools, children can now learn more because that's how they learn. They watch your face, they see how you're talking, how you're enunciating, things like that. So I think many people are simply done with the masking and are just going to,
Yeah.
if this governor tries to put it in, I think a lot of people are going to push back. We are going to push back. And well, I think another question is, you mentioned a lot of great policy platforms in the campaign. And when you get elected, because we have a state legislature that is extremely partisan, just vote things on party lines. But that's what potentially could that change because the House Speaker, Brian Eagle, who is known to be an absolute partisan, slamming things on party lines, announced his retirement. He won't seek re-election. And
Yeah, he's an originator on that Clean Futures Act, which would restrict our carbon output by 2030 to 50% of essentially 2010 levels. I mean, that's choking us off. That's all from human respiration to automotive to any energy generation other than solar and wind, which are variable, of course. And I think they're even going to shut down a coal power plant. I should learn more about that. But yeah, I'm sorry, but these are the people that are actively destroying our economy and our ability to have energy. So it's really shocking, but sorry to jump in there.
No problem. Yeah, it's no problem. And just my question to you is, as governor, how would you work to get your policies implemented, especially in a roundhouse that's extremely partisan and just immediately shuts down what the minority wants to say, or sometimes vice versa? So my question to you, if you're elected, how would you work with both parties to get your policies done for a better Mexico?
Well, that's a very complicated question. In terms of the work in the politics of the situation. I, for one, think that a lot of those folks that are currently in the roundhouse won't be there for the next election. I think a lot are going to drop out. A lot will have increasing, let's just say, problems that cause them not to. I think we'll have a whole different crop of people, at least at the very least, we'll have a number of more Republicans into the system as representatives and senators, for that matter, more than people are guessing now. I think there's going to be a lot of shift in terms of the perceptions of the appropriateness of certain policies and certain people between now and then. So, and then how to work with them. Well, I think we do a lot of things by referendum. I mean, I think we put a lot of these questions to the people instead of to the, you know, they're so rarely in session, and it's so brief, and it's so I think we need to expand perhaps the timeframes in which they do meet, and look at that. But we need to look at the problems and find the solutions. It's very simple. The rest is politics. Everything that gets in the way of everything is someone's, 90% of the time, it's someone wanting to set up a monopoly on, in terms of the goods and services that are used to solve the problems that they currently are undertaking. Most of the money to any political solution, whatever it might be, name 100 of them, but can't think of one right now. But the point being that when they approach a problem, they approach it by thinking about who they can satisfy as a constituent, if not a supporter, to, and set up a whole, if you put, what happened to all the money that came for the COVID response, like $2 billion to the state, it's untraced, untracked, unknown. And then if they say, oh, we gave $1 million to this after school children's program, well, it'd be hard place to find the children in the program and the people that are actually doing that. So this speaks to the immense levels of corruption that are possible when you have a voting system that chooses for you. The candidates are selected. So I think a lot of that on top of the COVID crisis coming to a head and being understood as in many ways, criminal operation, in terms of, a foreign country could not invade us and do more damage than what's been done in the last while. So this will all reflect very harshly on the current crop, and many will drop out in the next while. And we'll have a new crop in there pretty much. So I believe I'll find them easier to work with, is the point. And plus, we put things to referendum. We have more communication, more transparency. I mean, my administration would be so transparent, it'll be embarrassing sometimes. I don't mind showing how the sausage is made in terms of politics and getting things done. So I think those are a couple different ways that I'll find it easier to work with the next legislature.
I think so too. That's a great idea. We're just about, I would say, out of time for here, but do wanted to end it on this. It's like the last question. I know we didn't get on everything we wanted to talk about, but we talked about quite a bit, and we'll definitely talk more pretty soon. We'll have a lot more time to discuss a lot more.
Oh, we'll look forward to it.
Yes, and my last question to you is this. So if people, what would be your pitch, like your pitch to your voters? Like, what would be your pitch to the voters if they go on election day? Like, imagine today's election day, and what would be your final pitch to voters saying, I am the right choice, and how your campaign will look like?
It really comes down to this. I have no experience in politics, nor do I want any. I don't know who the big players in the state are. I don't want to know, and I don't care. I have no experience in politics in the sense of I have no experience in graft or corruption or self-dealing or all of the things that are so commonly in that we find our politicians so-called involved with. I'm an inventor. I'm actually done a fair amount of carpentry work and home repair. Certainly I could say that I'm a man of the people. I have had I'd call it a fortunate upbringing, but that I applied to study, research, and finding every approach to these common problems. For one, we should get more access to water in the state to get us out of this austerity program. of deterioration, intentional deterioration of our economy. And that comes from not knowing politics. We go to the ground where the situation is. We find the resources necessary, find the right people to solve the problem, whether it's the border or education at large or the economy. I believe the people to do that are already in the state. I believe the answer is in the room. We just need to find it and get past all the political bullshit, and politics and self-dealing and vested interests that cause things to be something other than reasonable and rational and sensible. So that, combined with the greater resources that we will have with a state bank, and some things that no other politician will ever touch, and that state bank being a big one, and a state currency, and that gets, in particular, as we can't do under the federal system, we can't do what's called specie. That's to say, have a dollar bill that's made out of paper. Our currency will all be in actual, I don't know the opposite of the word specie, but hard, physical currency, plus a gold-backed bank and certainly a blockchain-based way to access funds and transfer funds and all that. So that's it. Have good ideas and implement them. Don't play the politics. We have to work with a number of different interest groups, but I think the common thing is we need to put our heads together and make a better world for our children.
I think that is absolutely correct. And I do have a little things want to talk to you about off the record, but yeah, that's pretty much it. This is our most recent episode. I think the last episode was last year, so it's been quite a while, but we're back into it. Hopefully we'll be able to get through more of these. And thank you so much for coming out to the show, David Gordon. And
yes, well, thank you, Freddie. Thank you for what you do. It's so encouraging to me to see a young person engaging as a serious journalist. You have my every admiration for actually really going for it as you have. It's very encouraging to see. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, David. That's really appreciated. And to all, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell.
Subscribe.
If you like the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to comment below. And thank you so much. We'll talk to you off the record, David. And thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, my pleasure again. Thanks, Freddie. We'll see you soon.
See you.